veterans who have died to ensure our freedom as Americans. Who are these veterans? A veteran, whether active duty, discharged, retired, or reserve, is someone who, at one point in their life, wrote a check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. Can you tell who a veteran is? Some veterans bear visible signs of their service, missing a limb, a jagged scar, or a certain look in the eye. Others may carry the evidence inside them, a pin holding a bone together, a piece of shrapnel in the leg, or perhaps some sort of inner steel, the soul's ally forged in the refinery of adversity. The men and women who have kept America safe wear no badge or emblem. Who is a vet? He's the cop on the beat who spent 6 months in Saudi Arabia sweating 2 gallons a day to make sure that armored personnel carriers didn't run out of fuel. He's the barroom loudmouth whose overgrown frat boy behavior is outweighed 100 times in the cosmic scales by 4 hours of exquisite bravery near the 38th parallel. He or she is a nurse who fought against futility and went to sleep sobbing every night for 2 solid years in Da Nang. He is a POW who went away one person and came back another, or didn't come back at all. He is a Quantico drill instructor that never has seen combat, but has saved countless lives by turning even the worst of America's youth into Marines and teaching them to watch each other's backs. They are citizen soldiers who joined the National Guard and Reserve units, training on weekends because they knew that sometime their unit just might be called to fight. They served in the Gulf War, some did not return. He's the parade-riding Legionnaire who pins on his medals and his ribbons with a prosthetic hand. He is the career quartermaster who watches the ribbons and medals pass him by. He is any one of these 3 anonymous heroes in the Tomb of the Unknowns, whose present at Arlington National Cemetery must forever preserve the memory of all the anonymous heroes whose valor dies unrecognized with them on the battlefield or in the ocean's endless deep. He is the old guy bagging groceries at the supermarket, palsied now and aggravatingly slow, who helped liberate the Nazi death camp, and who wishes all day long that his wife were still alive to hold him when the nightmares come. They are ordinary, yet extraordinary human beings, a person who offered some of their life's most vital years in the service of their country, and who sacrificed their ambitions so others could not have to sacrifice theirs. He or she is a soldier and a savior and a sword against the darkness, and they are nothing more than the finest and greatest testimony on behalf of the finest and greatest nation ever known. I served in Vietnam, as did some of the veterans that are attending here today. The whole Vietnam experience for Americans is perhaps captured in the poem by Tracy Santani. The name of the poem is The Name Upon the Wall. On a morning on a clouded day, a woman went to see the names engraved upon the wall that bore them solemnly. With arms held tight against her chest to fight the growing chill, she read the names of lives cut short and dreams left unfulfilled. Ahead of her, she saw a man with a weathered, haunted face who sat upon his chair of wheels that brought him to this place. She watched him as, with withered hand, tried to touch a name, but struggle as he might, the strength he needed never came. She walked to him, kneeled slowly, and looked into his eyes. "Sir, I'll help you touch the name you have recognized." With shaking voice, he answered her, a gruffness in his tone. "I need no help. If it takes all day, I'll touch this wall alone." That's not me. "My limbs may be of little use, but for all that I may lack, so far from home this boy's life ceased, at least I made it back. I owe him now to find the strength to touch this wall alone, to honor my friend's memory, how briefly his light shone." She gathered her words, and carefully as she gazed upon his face. "We all have different reasons, sir, for coming to this place. I was just a little girl when you were over there. I could never hope to understand the pain that you still bear. but those of us who stayed behind were touched in our own way. We bear the scars of loved ones lost in places far away. Our brothers, fathers, and sisters, the return not quite the same. We watched with helpless agony and wished to ease their pain. We none of us were left untouched by all they went through, and you'd be helping me, sir, by letting me help you. He nodded slightly, wordlessly, and offered her his hand. Then one weary soldier, little girl, and a lost young man, whispering together, "Buddy, this is from all of us for you," reached out, hand in hand, and touched the name upon the wall. End of poem. Now, the United States is once again involved in conflict. Our nation was founded on the belief that without justice, there is no real freedom. Freedom for all is often a call to arms. We are a world community, and we are bound by our beliefs. We see justice as being infallible and accept the responsibility of taking action rather than doing nothing. We honor veterans who fought for what was right and for justice. To do less in the face of injustice, dishonor those who died living, giving us the ability to do the just thing. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this: "We look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential freedoms. First is the freedom of speech and expression. The second is the freedom of every person to worship God in their own way. And the third is freedom from want. And the fourth is freedom from fear." Terrorism is about fear. We may ask what would lead anyone to believe the United States was prepared to give up her freedom from fear. Could terrorists have seen our reliance on high-tech weapons and declining troop strength as weaknesses? Or did they believe that our rock and roll lifestyle said something about our national culture? Is it possible that Al-Qaeda felt that we were unprepared for unconventional warfare and unwilling to use our most valued resource to take the fight to them? The mission of the Department of Defense is to prevent and, when necessary, to prevail in the unconventional wars of the 21st century. To do so, the United States needs solid intelligence, high-tech tools, and the ability to project force over long distances, hunt down hidden enemies, and most important, well-trained and motivated people. Now, here is one example of motivation. In the early days of the conflict in Afghanistan, only a few weeks after the first U.S. Special Forces had been covertly inserted into the country, a radio message was relayed to the Army Operations Center in the Pentagon. It came from a Special Forces captain who had linked up with soldiers of the Northern Alliance. The message said, "We have not slept in 4 days. We have not eaten in 2 days. Water is running low, and we have only about 10 rounds of ammunition per minute. Tonight we attack." When seeing the FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C., I was struck by one of his quotes etched in stone. "I have seen war. I have seen war on land and sea. I have seen blood running from the wounded, and I have seen the dead in the mud. I have seen cities destroyed, and I have seen children starving. I have seen agonies of mothers and wives. I hate war." Most veterans who have seen men and women die in battle feel the same way. It is this feeling and sense of purpose that compels us to continue to ask our youth to serve in the armed forces. The war against terrorism may change our definition of veterans, of who they are. The war is being fought in their own backyard as well as in foreign countries. The war on terrorism is being waged by our police forces, the FBI, the air marshals, and the CIA. We have people very much exposed to the dangers of warfare who are not members of our traditional armed forces. If the definition of veteran includes those who fight our wars, a generation will come where we will recognize the contribution made by other veterans. Someday we may have a national holiday to honor the service of all those who work in public service and who risk their lives in the service of others. For now, we tend to think of veterans as the old guys in a 4th of July parade, and never see those in hospitals, homeless shelters, or at work every day in our churches, schools, on the farm, and at home. Veterans are all around us. It is easy to forget those who have served. We do not see the effort or the effects of the mysterious illness affecting our Gulf War veterans. And we have only recently thought of women as veterans. Women comprise a little over 8% of American veterans, and this number is growing. Freedom has been paid for by those who served and died to secure our way of life. And this investment goes on today. When you see the American flag, hear the national anthem, or see a vet who lost his leg to a landmine, remember that it was the veteran who answered the call to duty. It is the veteran whose duty it is now and has always been to protect us as we go to work, play golf, go to school, and worship without fear. When you see a young man or a woman in uniform, remember they are volunteers doing their duty and are prepared to lay it on the line. They are veterans and follow the traditions of their fathers, mothers, and generations long forgotten. Pray the nations of the world learn to resolve their differences without the use of terrorism or force of arms. Pray that we learn to live as one community with respect to our differences, and pray that we never take freedom for granted. Now, I'm going to ask the American band to please play the service melody. As the band plays, I would invite the veterans present to stand and come forward as your service is honored, and stand with me so together we can honor the veterans who died in the service of their country. Now, please come forward and stand with me. If you want to bring a chair so that you can sit down here with me, that's fine too. If you'd rather not come up, that's also fine. For those of you who are taking photographs, I assure you this will be a photographic moment. Families, please. Veterans of the Galena Territory. Thank you. The spirit of Memorial Day was born out of the tragedy and patriotism surrounding the Civil War. As we pause to reflect on this, think of the 620,000 men and women who lost their lives during the Civil War. May 30th was proclaimed as Decoration Day in 1868, 3 years after the war ended. In 1971, Congress expanded what had become known as Memorial Day to include all soldiers who have died in the service of the nation. Memorial Day serves as a reminder to citizens across the country of the ideals upon which this country is based. We remember those whose lives were sacrificed to strengthen and preserve the invaluable gift of freedom. The road of freedom is paved by the gravestones of soldiers who died to provide the right of way. My uncle died in World War II. He was a Marine sergeant who fought in 4 Pacific campaigns, including Guadalcanal, and returned home to New York to recover from malaria. He then returned to the Pacific and was killed at Iwo Jima. He was an uncle I never knew from a small country town in New York. He never came home again. Now, what is war? How are we to be reminded of what we have personally not experienced? What we see from the comfort of our homes on TV or in the movie theaters does not imprint upon us the complete terror of combat or the hardships suffered on the battlefield by those who lost a loved one. Only those who have been there truly know. Now, in July of 1971, I was stationed in Pennsylvania after my tour in Vietnam. I received a notice that a 22-year-old corporal serving in the infantry unit had been killed in action while leading a patrol as point man in Vietnam. The next of kin were his parents. They lived in Lancaster, and I changed to my Class A uniform, signed out an official staff car, and drove to Lancaster. It took me a little time to locate the address on a very nice street where kids grew up from nice families. I parked right down in front of the home, gathered up the courage, and walked up and rang the doorbell. I don't think I've done anything that hard since. As you might imagine, I never had to say the words I had rehearsed over and over again on the way to Lancaster. You see, his mom answered the door. She had seen the car pull up front, and she knew there would not be any other reason for an Army staff car to be there and for an Army captain to ring the doorbell. The look on my face told her all she did not want to know. I waited while she called her husband at work, and he owned a local garage, and asked him to please come home. I do not remember the family name. I never saw them again after that day. But on Memorial Day, I often think of their courage in the face of such tragedy and the sacrifice of that corporal who answered the call. He was a draftee. Like countless young men before him, he served because his nation called. Martin Luther King said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." Our nation was founded on the belief that without justice there is no real freedom. Justice for all is often a call for arms. We are a world community and we are bound by our beliefs. We see injustice as being intolerable and accept the responsibility to take action rather than do nothing. Memorial Day is when we honor those who fought for what was right and for justice. To do so unless, in the face of injustice, dishonor those who died giving us the ability to do the just thing. Personally, I'm very thankful that our country has always stood up for freedom and justice. I know that those who have died defending its country have not died in vain, but contributed to our rights as citizens of the Republic and defended our freedoms. We honor those who died well in the service of their country on Memorial Day. They made a difference, and it counted. It is admittedly difficult to explain what it is like to be in combat to someone who has never had the experience, the long periods of constant stress and boredom, followed by just seconds of absolute terror when in combat. There is no way to tell someone how it really feels to take another life defending your own. How can the general public be expected to appreciate and honor those who have no affinity with, for those that you have no affinity with, except of course for the moms and dads, sons and daughters of those who lost their life in the service of their country. For them, it's very personal and all too real. Memorial Day serves as a reminder to all citizens that those members of the armed forces who died well in uniform served with honor, and it is our duty to honor them in return. Take a minute on Memorial Day to reflect on the privilege it is to be an American, to be in America, to be a citizen, and think about those who serve to defend our country. Those in uniform of the armed services are the guardians of our freedom. To honor those who gave everything possible so that their sacrifice stands for duty, honor, and country. We are the ones for whom the sacrifice is made, and it is our responsibility to see that it counts. The often quoted in Flanders Field ends with, "Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high." If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, till poppies grow in Flanders field. Taps, the slow and melancholy bugle call, which dates back to the Civil War, originally served as a signal that the day was over. It has since been adopted as a special salute to those who have fallen, as we pay tribute to the soldiers, airmen, Marines, and sailors who were killed in action. To them we owe our freedom. To them we pay our respects. Please stand if you are able for the playing of taps by Dave, our band leader, who will play on a bugle that he used while he was in Vietnam. Dave? Thank you, Dave. Never forget why there is a Memorial Day. Thank you for allowing me to honor our territory veterans today and to remember those who gave all for their country. Thank you for allowing me to share with you my thoughts on Memorial Day. Thank you very much.